Ms. Saritha Auti, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your cyber story on application security. Before we get started, could you tell us a bit about UD Trucks?
Thank you for having me here, Neil. It's a privilege. And I want to talk a bit about my company and my role, and then we move forward with the next set of questions. UD Trucks is a truck manufacturing company which has 6 brands, 1 heavy-duty platform and 5 other mid-segment trucks. And it's a #1 heavy-duty trucks in Japan market. It's a global truck manufacturing company. It was a Volvo company and now is part of CISO Group. That's a very interesting time in the history of UD Trucks, I would say, where we are disintegrating from Volvo and integrating with Isuzu, and a lot of things on security side is taking a priority which is required by the geo.
It certainly does sound like an exciting time. And Ms. Saritha, just tell us a little bit about what does a global CISO role at UD Trucks, and also, much more importantly, I think, in the automotive industry, what does that entail?
Thank you. It's a very interesting question because as part of my role, I'm responsible both for IT side of the security and product security. When I say product security, it encompasses the certification program, which I must do as a CISO, because without which vehicles cannot be homologated in this country, in Japan. So we have to comply to ISO 21434 requirements and homologation requirements from the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport in Japan. So that's a huge work. And UD Trucks being part of Volvo, this was driven by Volvo always, and it's the first time we are doing it. And it's a big work which I have on my plate, apart from the IT security. Now, coming to the run-of-the-mill IT security work, that is also something which is very interesting because we are disintegrating from Volvo, and a lot of careful decision must be taken in approving exceptions or in approving the integration architecture and a lot of things. It's a little different from the regular CISO job, probably. I'm running it like a cybersecurity engineering team more than a CISO job. And I should thank our partners because we set up this function in last 1 year, and it's not possible for us to be here where we are today without our partners like Micro Focus. Some of these I must thank our partners.
See, it sounds like it's a very interesting time because you're trying to part with Volvo on one side and you're trying to integrate with Isuzu. And on top of that, you've got an AppSec program that you're running as well. There's a few dynamics here. Just to talk about a bit about your AppSec program, then, and you mentioned some of the compliance standards that you have to meet, the ISO 27000 and so on, the other ISO standards as well. What got you started on your AppSec program? Was it these frameworks, these compliance frameworks, or was it a much bigger play there?
So I would say that it's a product vehicle security requirements which which helped me with the business case for AppSec program. It's really the reverse way in compared to the other IT initiatives, because there is a very heavy emphasis on safety and security of the vehicles what we sell in Japan. Which means the data that goes from truck to the telematics cloud and telematics cloud to the backend servers in our network must be secure. So which means the backend applications which are rendering this data or consuming this data must be secure. And that is one of the strongest reasons why I could spin off AppSec program in this company to secure more than 2,000 applications, covering even the shop floor and plant and manufacturing and supply chain.
That's really interesting. And tell me a bit about your key stakeholders. Who were they? So, you talk about IT and you talk about your CISO function. Was your AppSec program a global program, or was it mainly looking at the Japan market where you're based, and probably your integration with Isuzu as well? Your key stakeholders, was this a global program?
This is a global program. We sell trucks outside Japan as well, and our international sales is much bigger than Japan sales. So this is a global program. We have manufacturing set up in Japan and Bangkok. And when I say we have to secure these applications, it covers all across the globe, applications across the globe, including South Africa or US or Australian market or Hong Kong, then Thailand and China and Japan, many countries.
And do they all have different compliance frameworks that you have to address?
Kind of, yes, but we have made a common compliance framework, which is derived from ISO as a base framework. And then we have augmented that with specific regulatory requirements from specific markets, like China has very stringent norms. So we have augmented and created our own regulatory and compliance framework in the last 1 year after we spun off from Volvo.
Right. And when we talk about application security and trying to build that into the software development lifecycle, some of the feedback we hear from customers is that, managing key stakeholder expectation, because it slows down manufacturing and so on. Did you face any of that, and how did you cope with it?
Yes, absolutely. I think this is the standard known problem across which every CISO will have probably. So it starts with the applications and delivery team. When we say that we want to scan, I'm just taking a very basic example. I want to scan the application. First thing they would say is, no, we don't have time, because if you detect some vulnerabilities, then you start chasing us for remediation. So please don't come near us. So from that point, to make sure that applications are timely scanned, especially when there is a major change. So we have set up the process. When do we actually want to scan with a major change or something like that? From that time till the remediation, it's what we completely push people, we educate them. The end goal is to make sure it's remediated. So either we convince them, or either we push them, or either we show them that some peer company has got breached with a similar vulnerability which has got exploited. So whatever it is, we make sure that it is remediated within SLA.
So you touched on something that's quite key to an AppSec program, which is the people process technology. How did you get the balance there, and how does that influence tool selection?
So I want to take a step back and explain you one more thing before I get to this question. So now balancing this vulnerabilities and remediation, vulnerability detection and remediation, it's a very challenging work. So we have our own risk framework, and I think that is extremely important, because what we do is it's not that we just have AppSec, right? We also have infra security vulnerability scans which go on at the same time. So what I have devised with the help of my team is we map the vulnerabilities related to the infrastructure and application in the context of data flow. So every application what we have the data flow related to that, and we exactly know that, if this particular server has a weakness, is it going to have an impact, or is it going to increase the risk on this application? So we know that at this point of time. So that is where, and we built this in discussion with the applications team. So we have included our stakeholders well in the beginning, so that they are also part of this risk qualification process, and they agree to the remediation part. Now, I would say that this is a people and process part of it. Now, how the tool helps us. So this is, again, very important. It's not about just Micro Focus. We had evaluated at least 7 or 8 companies which are in similar field before we went ahead with Micro Focus. One thing I liked here is because it's always that the transparency that is maintained and the support, what I call. So it took some time for us also to get that maturity with the scans and remediation program, right? Because we defined the process by ourselves. We did not inherit it from Volvo. And Micro Focus helped us implement that and validate. in the first maybe first 2 months or 3 months of scans, we got the vulnerability scores from Micro Focus in alignment with CVSS score or CV guidelines, which was not really okay with what we have, because I would actually re-qualify these vulnerabilities based on the infrastructure or network vulnerabilities. So we used to have a lot of discussion, and I must thank Micro Focus, because every time, even your team, they came towards us collectively, and we had many workshops and meetings to redefine this risk scoring mechanism. And today we have a very robust mechanism, and I'm very happy about what we have, because it's a sustainable model what we have built with the help of the tool. So we had process, we had included our stakeholder as part of the people management and change management, because security was not part of the culture. It was driven, it was mandated, it was not a culture. From there, the shift was really different, because we run the change management, including our stakeholders into the flow. And then the tool supported us to do that. So this is a beautiful combination which we built over last one year, actually.
And it sounds like when you were using the tool, you were very specific on the risks that you wanted to get visibility across and be able to remediate. How does this help you measure the success of an AppSec program?
So initially, to start with, we knew what we started with. So we had a starting point. It was certainly not looking good. So that is where I do not say that we had a point to measure, because it was not a good measuring scale as well, what we had. And from there, first 3 months, I just said that we're not going to measure anything. We are just going to pick up what we can remediate, because I do not want any impact on the migration timelines, because everything is time bound in our case, because we are in a very different situation, right? Migration and integration, it's a very different situation. I did not want security to be a roadblocker or impacting on the migration timelines. At the same time, start remediating and reducing the risk in the transition phase, because transition phase is very, very crucial when it comes to the cyber attacks. So I just wanted to make sure that at this stage, the entire network is very safe. Applications are not giving in to the attempts which are happening from outside the network. So having this in mind, I set a very, very, I would say the very weak kind of metric, said that, okay, whatever we can remediate, let's remediate. It's not that I want to say that I'm remediating 99% or 98% or 100%, right? I cannot say that. So with that, we set out. And parallelly, one good thing I got from the AppSec program is the shift left kind of activity we started, because what we started generating is a pattern of vulnerabilities or pattern of risks, pattern of coding flaws, pattern of weakness. So we started creating those patterns. Now, when we see these patterns, this is what we started discussing with our stakeholders, that is applications and delivery team, and say that, look here, there is a coding guideline. If you really follow that, these deviations wouldn't be there. And we started bridging those deviations, again, with the help of AppSec delivery team from Micro Focus and my team. We started discussing this with the application team, and then they started bridging. So it was not that I defined some metric at a very stringent metric and I started focusing on that. It never happened that way. It was more about, I would say it was a hybrid approach with a very loosely defined metric to start with, but shift left going on parallelly and remediation program happening parallelly. Now I can say that we are, what kind of compliance we have, I can seriously say that we are above 90% compliance for remediation.
I think that's a really, really important point that you've made, Ms. Saritha, because we see a lot of AppSec programs struggle, and some don't get the kind of level of support and investment that you want, mainly because they set the bar really high at the start, and they don't have an entry point to start an AppSec program to create the visibility. And I think that the insight that you've just shared with us is extremely valuable because it also shows the level of empathy that you had in putting an AppSec program together. Trying to extend that a little bit further then. So, we've got people process there. We have a tool now that we're using to evaluate where we are in our AppSec program. How do you address the skills shortage and how do you keep the talent within the AppSec program?
So that is very much aligned to our company strategy that we do not want to build a deep skilled security team. That's the strategy what we have because we are an auto and manufacturing company. So we want to leverage the strengths of our partners and use the tools. And we want to build security as a culture across everybody in the company. But if we do not want to hire somebody who is very specifically focusing only on certain security tools and things like that, we do have security architects who are enterprise architects reskilled into security architecture. We do have them. So our focus is to have security architects, security program managers, but for other things like deep skilled tool specific skill sets, we rely on partners. And that's the good support I'm getting from all our partners, and it's sustainable for us.
That makes a lot of sense, and I think the key word there is sustainability. Shifting gears a little bit now, over the last few years, we've heard a lot about the software supply chain, and you mentioned it earlier about some of the challenges you have. What would be your guidance on securing the software supply chain, and how important has this become in the automotive industry?
It's extremely important because last 2 years, I've been seeing a lot of cyber incidents which are coming from the supply chain side, including what happened in November with Toyota and afterwards. I mean, many things have happened. So I think it is very important. And also in Japan specific market, there is a very strict emphasis from MLIT and JAMA, that is Japanese Automakers Associations. So they have very strict guideline on how we deal with suppliers and connections, because here in Japan market, there are collaboration platforms where spare parts are, I'm just taking an example, spare parts are sold on marketplace, right? Where all of us connect, be it UD Trucks or Nissan or Toyota or Fuso or Hino, all of us connect to the same marketplace. And this particular website, it doesn't give you a very secure way of publishing your spares and publishing the price and component details and things like that. Now, given that situation, it's a collaborative hub. And our suppliers also connect there. We also connect our peer companies, competitors, everybody are connecting there. So given that, we have to make sure that our network is secure. Because if somebody is querying for spare parts on this particular marketplace and wanting to know certain price or some information which is not publicly available, that means we have to have some strong mechanism to validate these kind of queries. We have to make sure that it is all SSL or encrypted traffic and things like that. So we have secured all those things from our side. That is one part of it. Now, another angle to this is we also procure a lot of components from our supplier, be it the chassis, for example, or it may be an ECU or gateway. We procure a lot of these things. And they have an access to our quality system, our production applications. So we have to make sure that basic security guidelines are well implemented and maintained. We audit them and we are okay to be audited. So that's the baseline. We are okay to be audited anytime. We are prepared. And we have deployed good controls and we know what's happening in our network. We have a library of all data flows within our network. We also expect that when somebody is using our data is rightly protected. So we also do random audits.
It sounds like there are so many small different components that come together to build smart vehicles, and vehicles are getting smarter, we're getting more and more connected. How do you see the balance between security, safety, and improving user experience, say for a driver, for example?
Very, very interesting and excellent question, Neil. This is the heart of this homologation. Again, I'm talking about specifically Japan, but the same concept applies to our vehicles across the globe. There is something called Software Update Management System, which is part of ISO 21434 framework, which is also relating to the another compliance requirement, that is WP.29 and R156. So what it means is there are these ECUs which are on board of the vehicle, which frequently get updated by the provider of these ECUs. Maybe it's Bosch or somebody else, right? They keep updating the firmware and everything, or certain configurations. So that is one software update that happens. Now, another thing is these ECUs, why do they exist on the truck? Because they are supposed to be monitoring health of the truck, quality parameters of the truck, supposed to be communicating how the mirror is getting adjusted versus the tire pressure when it is going in certain terrain, and a lot of data. We collect a lot of data from the moving truck to the telematics cloud. So now what happens to this data in telematics cloud? So one is it's collected for analysis perspective, not for cybersecurity, right? So now the angle what MLIT is bringing into this aspect is they want to understand how we are focusing on safety, because security is something that enables safety of vehicles, drivers, protects privacy information of the customers. So security, I would say, it is like a mechanism to protect the data, while safety is the outcome. And this is what is in the key. It's what is a key focus of this MLIT. And if we are not compliant with their guidelines, they have issued a huge guidelines for this. If we are not compliant, we cannot sell the trucks in this market. Now, having said that, there are many aspects related to software updates. So we can do, just taking one use case, right? We can update the software on truck after we sell these trucks to the market customer. We can update them over the air, or we can update it through a hardened laptop in the dealership or through service campaigns. So security must be implemented at our dealership, which means I go personally sometimes to our dealership to randomly audit to see if they have implemented security practices. Are they sharing password? Very basic, right? Are they sharing password? Are they connecting those specific laptops, hardened laptops, to see something else on YouTube or something like that? We do that. It's not just me. Some of my team members also, we randomly go and audit. We ensure security is implemented at all points, be it dealership or at vehicle or at our telematics cloud, or something that connects to our backend server, or our partners who are accessing these applications to do the enhancements and everything. So it's a holistic audit.
I can see when you were explaining about the data flow, I can see what you mean by this now, because right from hardened laptops that upgrade, the firmware of a particular component in the car, all of that data flowing around, you have to have a good handle on it. Otherwise, you get exposed to different vulnerabilities. Just to kind of coming up to the end of the time that we have, it's been a pleasure to chat to you today. Really interesting, and thank you for building secure vehicles and creating a safer place for us. For those of us who are starting out on an AppSec program, what would you offer as key takeaways from your experience?
I would say that please set a reasonable target, and we all know that remediation is must. But I think all of us in security, cybersecurity field, we also must be very empathetic towards the business and applications team, which many times we look at everything from the security lens. I think that is something which we need to have a bit of a different thinking about that. That's first a suggestion from the people and change management standpoint. Second thing, I believe that shift left is a way to go, and that helps a lot because it's a continuous improvement program and certainly helps all of us to have a better life, not stressed out with the vulnerabilities. And vulnerabilities exist, right? It exists everywhere. We cannot stop it. All it matters is what is the risk it is bringing to our network. So shift left helps us with continuous improvement programs and bring down the risk continuously.
Thank you so much, Ms. Auti. Thank you so much for your time. Very, very interesting sharing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And all the best for everybody in this field.
Thank you, Ms. Saritha. Thank you. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.